What's up, guys and goddesses? It's your girl, Doc T, the woke professor here, also known as Dr. Shantasia Shorter, founder of the Carrie Mae Williams Center and the host of this here Lotus Room. So I'm coming to you today because it's been a while since I have put out any new content, and I've been in my meditation and manifestation and going through some transitions, and I got a little off track with my breakdown of the 5 agreements. So we left off on the third agreement. We haven't finished up that series yet, but I've been sitting here digging into it to bring some nuggets of wisdom to you today. So that's what we gonna do. So the third agreement is all about not making assumptions. Okay. And I have a quote from the book. If you haven't heard of it, it's called The Fifth Agreement by Don Miguel Ruiz and his son Don Jose Ruiz. It's a Toltec wisdom book. And if I'm not mistaken, I guess Janet Mills is the person who helped them edit it, or she may have added some information to it. But this is a text that we've been reading from and talking about and discussing, and this is a quote I want to bring to you today. It says, "Making assumptions is just looking for trouble, because most assumptions are not the truth, they're fiction. One big assumption we make is that everything in our virtual reality is truth. Another big assumption we make is that everyone else's virtual reality is the truth. Well, now you know that none of the virtual realities are true. Using our awareness, we can easily see all the assumptions we make, and we can see how it is easy to make them. Humans have a powerful imagination, very powerful. There are so many ideas and stories that we can imagine. We listen to the symbols talking in our head. We start imagining what other people are doing, what they're thinking, what they're saying about us, and we dream things up in our imagination. We invent a whole story that's only true for us, but we believe it. One assumption leads to another assumption. We jump to conclusions, and we take our story very personally. Then we blame other people, and we usually start gossiping to try to justify our assumptions. Of course, by gossiping, a distorted message becomes even more distorted. So when we think about the ways that we in the Black community make assumptions, assumptions are steeped in this concept of internalization. We internalize so many things that are not ours to hold on to, and it really doesn't make sense to do so. And so I have some notes here that I want to go through with you. I'm going to read the notes word for word, and then I'm going to put them in context with some examples of how we make assumptions in our own communities, and with the greater world at large. All right. So my notes is, I have, assumptions are the result of internal conflict that comes from stories we create in our heads. The stories are created through the distortion of words that create lies that grow into superstitions because we believe those lies fervently. Superstition is the belief in what you don't understand. Now, you build a whole lifestyle around superstitious practices founded upon lies that have you caught in a matrix, a virtual reality you keep replaying over and over every day you wake up, because it was easier to believe the lies than to take the time and find the truth. The third agreement in context, this is what I came up with. Religion racism, and relationships are three of the biggest body of superstitions we practice as a society. So I'm gonna start with the society at large, and then I'm gonna break it down into the microcosm of the Black community. Okay, so racism, assumptions. No, not racism. I want to start with religion. Religion, assumptions and superstitions that have come out of religion. The greater society at large has become very comfortable and okay with assuming that everything that comes out of the mouth of a self-proclaimed spiritual teacher is truth. When, in fact, if you begin to do your research, I'm getting a little uncomfortable now. I got to sit up. If you begin to do your research and really get into, let's see, let me pull this back a little bit. And really get into the origins of religion and religious practices, then you begin to understand that there is a big difference between religion and superstitious practices of religion and actual spirituality and rituals related to that spirituality. All right, so let's break it all the way down for you. The school of religion that we have these days, we have Catholicism, we have Christianity, and then we have, I always forget the last one, but I know it encompasses the Muslim faith and things of that nature. What is it? Judaism, Christianity, Catholicism, and Judaism, if I'm not mistaken. Those are the three big bodies or institutions of religions. Well, if you trace the Christian stories back to where they originally began, you would find that they started in Kemet. They originated out of Kemet. They expanded into Ethiopia, Nigeria, and other places within Africa where those traditions and the symbology are still largely intact for the most part. But we know that a lot of that, the rituals, the language has been lost due to colonization. You know, conquerors coming over to the regions, raiding the tombs, raiding the graves, stealing a lot of the artifacts and taking them back to Europe, where the Vatican has possession of them now, if you did not know this. With Christianity in particular, well, before, I don't want to jump into that yet. I need to break this other piece of information down for you. All of the spiritual, a lot of, well, okay, we're going to say a lot. I'm not going to speak, I'm trying to refrain from speaking in too many blatant statements. A lot of the spiritual practices, spiritual knowledge, and philosophies that come out of Europe, particularly Greek mythology, came from Kemet. Okay, so European philosophers, European spirit, people who studied the spirituality and the philosophies and the mathematicians and all of that, all of the great philosophers, mathematicians, scientists that are talked about in our traditional American education system as the fathers of education, the fathers of thought, they went and sat at the feet of master teachers in Kemet. Okay, they went and sat at the feet of master teachers in Kemet, and they took what they learned there and they brought it back to Europe. They brought it back to Europe. They whitewashed it. They made all of their own European parallel symbols, figures, deities, stories. They took the stories that were really about the cosmic cycles that we experience on a daily basis, and they translated them into people. European looking people with European names and plagiarize a lot of that information, right? So they put it all, so they did that. They created this body of spirituality and philosophy that their people could buy into. And then this is the greatest part about it. They strung all that stuff together with pagan rituals and practices that span everything from Celtic down to whatever else you can think of. And it is what we now practice today in America when we think about our holidays and our spirituality and Christianity and Christmas and Easter and all of these different other holidays that we practice, right? So we are now at a place where we are in a mass, like everybody under a spell. Just to put it, bluntly, everybody is under a spell. So it started there, and then you had King James come along, create the Bible, commission the Bible to be written, to put all of these stories down in this book that we are supposed to abide by and live and die by. When though many of those stories, if you open up the book of Coming Forth by Day, known as the Book of the Dead, named by the Europeans now, and you put them together, you will see a lot of the same stories, all right? The story of Mary and Jesus can be found in the Bible. We all know, for those of us who study this, we know that is a star, that is Iset, and that is, I can't remember, my correspondences get mixed up, but Horus. So that would be Isis, Osiris, and Horus. And Kemetic spirituality. And we can keep going on and on and on. The stories of Seth and Asar in Kemetic spirituality are the stories of Cain and Abel in the Bible. So when we talk about making assumptions, right? Making assumptions. In today's society, many of us who practice from a superstitious standpoint do so because we assume that what it has been passed down from generation to generation to generation is true. And instead of taking the time to do the research and challenge the virtual reality that we're living in, and consider the possibility of an alternate reality that could actually elevate you, it is more comfortable for us to stay in the matrix. So that's religion for you. So that's how we make assumptions through our religion. And the most egregious transgression we make within our spiritual practices and our assumptions of what is real, what is fake, what is right, and what is wrong is when we as practitioners of those superstitions begin to tell other people that there is only one way to practice, there is only one way to believe. And then we turn around and condemn those who we are supposed to love, respect, and protect and appreciate for choosing to reject your virtual reality. I have been blessed to have a circle of family and friends who respect my beliefs and practices for whatever reasons. I have been also blessed to see the same people who were afraid of what it is I was telling when I first began, speaking this knowledge and putting the pieces together and showing the parallels between the practices and getting into yoga and spirituality, other forms of spirituality and meditation. I have been blessed to see many of those people who were so fervently against it in the beginning and took it so personally when I decided to reject Christianity that they now have incorporated many of the practices and studies that I study into their own personal lives. And they speak to how it has benefited them and to help them grow. So that's religion for us. Racism. Racism is another huge body of superstition that we play into. Oh, but I also need to note that just because I choose to reject Christianity does not mean that I don't realize that all spirituality is connected, all right? I do believe that all spirituality is connected, and I also believe that different ethnicities, races, and cultures choose to practice how they practice and choose the rituals that they choose because it is nothing more than connecting with their source. You are able to connect with what you can see yourself in, all right? So for those who practice Buddhism, for those who practice Christianity, for those who practice Catholicism, for those Ifa, Santeria, every one of these different forms of religion and spirituality, they have their own rituals, they have their own deities, they have their own saints, because they can identify them. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. So we need to stop assuming that because somebody does not worship the same deity that we worship, that they going to hell. And this whole concept of heaven and hell, that's another thing. If you read the Third Agreement, they get into the concept of truth and lies, heaven and hell, imagination, superstitions, and all of these different things, right? So I just need to offer that disclaimer. Just because I choose to reject Christianity does not mean that I don't realize that regardless of how the institution got here, that there is some benefit and some truth to practicing it, as long as we don't get stuck in this matrix that causes us to make assumptions and then go and attack people because their belief system differs from ours, their spiritual walking journey differs from ours. Okay. Racism, the second biggest body of superstition that we practice. It's a two-way street. Racism has such a hold on our world because those who created the lies of inferiority based on skin did so out of the belief that they themselves are inferior. Okay, so they just wanted to flip the script. But what is so diabolical about it is that somewhere along the lines, millions of godlike creatures who possess the DNA of all races fed into the lie. And now because we believe the lie, we out here fighting against a lie. That if we just link toward the truth and realize that we ourselves are gods because we are made in God's image, therefore we possess the power of God within us, which is evident through our melanin, which is evident through our resilience, which is evident through our creativity and the soul that we infuse into everything that we do in society, then we wouldn't be so worried about overcoming and overtaking a system that was built specifically against us. If you did the research on where laws came from in the U.S., we never had as many laws as we do now until Black folks started getting educated and started wanting to have what white folks had. That's when you start getting laws, okay? If you go back and research original laws way back When, even in the state of Tennessee, I have my students research original laws around housing and things of that nature so they can understand how things develop. If you take it all the way back, the original laws were all about keeping black folk and women out of the spaces of opportunity and ability to acquire assets and the ability to have the same agency as white men. That's all laws were about. So if you begin to understand that, then you begin to shift your perspective of why laws exist and how you yourself should view them and operate within them. If you choose to do so, you may choose to decide to reject those laws altogether, and you will be well within your rights to do so, because to blindly abide by the laws of this land is to accept inferiority. All right, so that's just one example where I'm going to break down racism. It's so many other ways that we can get into it, but the legal system is one way that we can look at it and really understand. If you really are into your studies about the history of racism and spirituality and religion and all that comes, you know that automatically race and religion are intertwined. All right. It is a spiritual war that has been waged upon us from all fronts. All right. Because you can't take down a whole civilization of gods without studying them to then be able to attack them from their points of weaknesses, right? Last but not least, relationships. We have so many superstitions around relationships in society that it is one of the biggest areas in which the Black community struggles. So let's zoom it out to the macrocosm for a second. So greater society says that relationships should be between a man and a woman. If we're talking about romantic relationships. Greater society also says that there is a hierarchy of value placed upon you based on your gender, your race, and your socioeconomic status, right? So when you think about relationships from that standpoint, then that means that only the white man and the white woman are capable of being able to are capable of being able to have a successful, thriving relationship, are the only two entities that deserve to have successful, thriving relationships. All right. And then everybody else just fall into place with Black women being at the bottom of the barrel, right? So Black women are just supposed to take what is given to them and be happy. They serve us shit, we supposed to eat it, throw some sugar on it and say thank you, right? So these are some of the assumptions that are that we have subscribed to in many ways, okay, on a daily basis. When it comes to relationships, let's just isolate it. Okay, let's break it down to romantic relationships. You see it all the time on social media, on Facebook, women, Black women posting memes about how niggas ain't shit, about how about double standards, about this idea of the gold digger versus a woman who requires financial security, about and on the man's, let's not forget the ain't shit baby daddies. We can't forget about those. On the other side of it, you got the ain't shit baby mamas. We got the gold digging ass females. We got the thoughts and all these other things that we talk about, that Black men talk about in relationship to Black women. Or the biggest one, Black women go and marry and date outside of their race because there's something innately wrong with all Black women, right? So we have that whole body of a clusterfuck when it comes to relationships. And it's built upon the assumptions that something is wrong with us, when that's not the case. It's just that we have made certain agreements with society that we blindly follow and build a whole lifestyle around, to the point that now you are practicing superstitions because you don't even understand what it is that you're doing. I'm guilty of it. How many of us Black women can say that we have not at some point tried to be what society said we should be? Whether it be about your complexion, whether it be about being a lady in the streets and a freak in the sheets, whether it be about having these figure 8 bodies with these little waists and being able to twerk like the strippers, and we got pole dancing classes that has become a norm. Like, and not to say that there's anything wrong with those things, because yours truly will hop on a pole in a minute to twerk something, because it's freeing. But there are so many societal stipulations on the Black female body that we are not able to be who we are, as we are, unapologetically, and still feel secure enough within ourselves to feel like we deserve love and marriage, to feel like we deserve to be seen as beautiful as we are, to feel like we deserve to be praised for our individuality and our uniqueness. I mean, it's just the reality that this is the virtual reality that a lot of us live in, right? Because at the end of the day, all of that is a lie. When you begin to focus on what your truth really is, then you can let all the lies fall by the wayside, and you can get rid of these crazy stories you keep playing over and over in your head that got you on mute and afraid to ask for what you deserve in a relationship with a man that it is that you want to be with. I'm guilty of it. How many times can you recall finding yourself in a situation with a guy who clearly is not being very forthcoming about his intentions with you, and instead of you just laying it on the table and telling them what you want, and being brave enough to accept the response, you just remain mute and accepted what came to you. I've done it for years. It was a cycle that was hard for me to break, because my self-perception was so low that I just took what came to me. Because number one, I didn't know what I deserved looked like. And number two, once I started realizing what it is that I truly wanted, I had to break through the barrier of believing that I could actually have it. And not only could I actually have it, that I deserve it. And that if I'm not getting it, then that's not where I need to be. So I say all that to say that it's time to reevaluate. 2020 has been about paradigm shifting, institutions falling, old ways of thinking and believing crumbling, and just allowing everything to be engulfed in flames, burn down to ashes, only to rise as the phoenix. All right. Allow yourself to be consumed with the fire in this season. Allow yourself to be reduced to a pile of ashes, and then watch what arises once you rebirth. Watch that phoenix rise. Who will she be? Who will she be when she starts to renegotiate what is truth and reality for her? when it comes to your spirituality, when it comes to your race, when it comes to your religion, when it comes to your femininity. We are the threshold of civilization. We hold the DNA of every race within our mitochondria. We are the only ones to do so. When I say we, I'm talking about Black women. Our mitochondria holds the DNA for all civilizations, all races. It is through us, our healing, and our learning that whole communities and civilizations are healed and renewed. And like my good girl, I Am Love, reminded us that as we do the work, and as we elevate, and as we heal, everybody who is connected with us will do the same thing on a cellular level. Because that's what it's all about. The spells that we are under were put there through a series of traumatic experiences that were passed down from generation to generation to generation through eugenics. They have mutated into so many different behavioral side effects, physical side effects, psychological side effects, that is levels to what it is we have to unpack within our ancestral bloodlines. It's like we got to come through, manifest here again, and go through all of that stuff in a 3D and break it down and rewire it, reprogram it. And once we do that, a wave of healing is shot back from generation to generation to generation to generation. Imagine that. Healing your ancestral bloodlines by just sitting down and doing the work. By reconceptualizing what it is you believe to be true. Just based on your intuition. As women, our intuition is so strong because we are connected with the moon. Our wombs, so much so that our wombs run on a cycle that is parallel to the moon. And whatever cycle and phase you find the moon being in at that moment, you can best believe on some level you are experiencing those changes emotionally and psychologically. So it behooves you to become more in tune with astrology and astronomy so that you can understand what is happening inside of you. The third agreement really broke down a lot of things for me, and it has me really motivated to go into this next season, because I myself have been put in front of the mirror to take a look at myself, to take a look at what I believe, and release a lot of those things that have been limiting me. And subsequently, everybody connected to me. This new moon energy, though. This new moon energy in Virgo, boo, got your girl motivated. And I hope you all are feeling those changes as well. I hope you are able to receive the knowledge and the enlightenment that came through to me today. I had to share that with y'all. If what I have talked about in this message today resonates with you, then I want you to sound off in the comments, of course. But I also want you to let me know if you are up to have this conversation in a room, in the Lotus Room. So we'll do a room tomorrow Time to be announced. But yeah, if y'all want to get more into this and talk about how the third agreement relates to you, I would love to do so, y'all. I want to hear what y'all, how y'all feeling. I want to hear what you thinking. I want to hear what parts of this message resonated with you and how it applied to your life, because that's what the Lotus Room is about. The Lotus Room is about us digging down, getting into those deep, dark spaces that we don't want to get into, getting into those corners and really cleaning out the mess, making sense of it, and making things pretty again. Like the lotus emerges into dark, murky waters and emerges pretty and brand new after going through the stages of alchemy and things of that nature. One day I will break down the full chematic story of the lotus. But that's all I have for you today. I love you, I like you, and I look forward to taking this journey with you. Peace, goddesses and gods.